Hey, I'm Jamie Easton. Today's episode of the Smart 7 is brought to you by your nectar prices at Sainsbury's. Imagine a world where your favourite things cost less. It's pretty amazing, right? It's like the universe is aligned just for you. Well, that's the magic of your nectar prices at Sainsbury's, and it's pretty simple. You can unlock up to 10 personalised discounts every Friday on things you love in the Nectar app. And the best part is that while nectar prices are for everyone, your nectar prices are just for you. It couldn't be simpler. Each week you'll get up to 10 personalised offers. They're your nectar prices. So every Friday, just check your Nectar app and unlock your nectar prices to save more now. Enjoy your own personalised discounts on things you love with your nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, Nectar app required. Unlock up to 10 your nectar prices weekly. Available in supermarkets, online and in locals with Smart Shop. T&Cs apply. 7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie Easton. This is the Sunday 7.
I'm Ciara Evans in for Jamie East this week, and on today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we hear about what went on with the Titan submarine disaster, get good news for ME sufferers, and meet some radioactive rhinos. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, explains why AI might be hampering your job search and reveals what gift Apple boss Tim Cook gave Donald Trump. If you're enjoying our episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 in association with Metro. Before we get started, though, it was on this day in 1897 that Dr. Felix Hoffmann created a stable and pure form of acetylsalicylic acid, which later became known as aspirin. He set out to find a pain relief for his father's rheumatoid arthritis and ended up creating a universal painkiller still in use today. It's been just over 2 years since the Titan submarine failed dramatically on an expedition to the wreck of the Titanic. The story captivated the world when an extensive search and rescue operation mounted after the Oceangate Sub lost contact with their base shortly after it began its dive. The story ended in tragedy with 5 people losing their lives, including Oceangate CEO Stockton Rush, British explorer Hamish Harding, French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and British tycoon Shahzada Dawood and his son Sohnlein. This week saw the official US Coast Guard report published on the incident, and it was pretty damning, as Jason Neubauer, the chair of the Coast Guard Marine Board of Investigation, explains.
This incident was, from the board's view, absolutely preventable. And when we looked at the evidence, the board feels it was actually predictable. If somehow the master of the vessel had survived this incident, the board feels that that would have raised to a level that should be looked at for seamen's manslaughter. The
report is over 300 pages long and directly blames the sub's parent company Oceangate and its CEO Stockton Rush for breaking and ignoring safety standards. Oceangate offered its condolences to the families of those who died and noted that it is now fully wound down operations. Dick Barton is a former vice president and director of operations of the RMS Titanic, the company which salvaged the site of the wreck, and he had previously worked with French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who died on the submarine. He told Sky News that the CEO's insistence on using carbon fibre for the body of the sub was catastrophic.
The engineering structure was flawed from the minute it started off. Titanium spheres are used by both the French and the Russians and other submersibles around the world and have been used for years. It's a proven factor that physics will work and operate at those depths with a round or spherical shape. Anything that's straight, and carbon fibre is a clue, if a fibre, as long as the fibre is broken, it cannot be refixed. And sadly, that was probably the point of the demise.
There was one voice speaking out in defence of Stockton Rush, the Oceangate CEO, and that was his co-founder and fellow ocean explorer, Guillermo Sohnlein, who said Rush had a bigger vision for ocean exploration.
He was really driven by an altruistic drive to help humanity, to help save our planet. If there was any hubris involved, I think it's because he felt that he had finally come up with a solution that would help give humans greater access to our oceans. And I think that's what was driving him, and that was the sense of urgency that he had to kind of push forward.
It may be the summer, most people might be on holidays, but tech never sleeps, and that means the Smart 7's tech gurus Will Guyatt doesn't get much sleep either. Donald Trump has been busy firing out all kinds of threats again this week, promising tariffs on computer chips, pharmaceuticals, and imposing a weirdly high tariff on Switzerland for reasons that aren't totally clear. That's led to a bizarre parade of business people through the Oval Office at the White House bearing gifts and pledging for mercy from the US president. It's all getting a bit dear leader, isn't it, Will?
If you didn't know better, you'd think these cringeworthy scenes came from a comedy, but no, it's getting a bit like visiting the Corleone family in The Godfather when you go to see President Donald Trump.
The latest visitor was Apple's CEO Tim Cook. What was he looking for?
He was looking for the president to stop breathing down his neck and was offering up to $100 billion worth of investment in trying to get parts made for Apple's best-selling products made in the good old USA. In short, pandering to Donald's obsession and continued targeting of Apple, to the extent that his own Trump organisation said it was going to launch a gold Trump One phone, which it claimed was purely made in the US. But nobody, including the people who make these phones, can work out how that's even possible right now. And a visit to the White House, kissing the metaphorical Trump ring, and even committing Apple's efforts to move at least bits of iPhone and other tech creation to the US will hopefully please the great leader.
It seems unlikely that Apple can move production entirely to the US, though.
Not quickly, cheaply, or easily. So arguably anything that Trump does to bring component manufacturing or creation back to the US is actually a pretty solid achievement, as it would stop years of decline in the creation of high-tech products in America. They spend billions on these products every year, but more and more and more of them are being made overseas. It would appear that this offer of trying to move production to the US stops the threat of 100% tariffs on components that would have really crippled Apple as a business.
How badly have they been affected by the tariffs so far?
I couldn't actually tell you, because the threat of tariffs and the numbers have changed so often as Trump told us off to the White House bathroom that I'm not entirely sure what the hell is going on. That said, it was looking bad a few months ago for Apple, to the extent they unexpectedly loaded up 4 or 5 freight planes full of iPhones and other Apple kit to sell in the US, buying them a little time before they may have had to push up price to consumers.
What was this week's gift for the Emperor?
I'm not entirely sure where this whole idea of bringing a naff present seems to be a trend. I've visited tech companies with cases of this useless stuff all around the world. These trinkets and tokens of appreciation normally sit in a dusty old glass case in reception next to the coffee machine. Now, at the White House, Trump was presented with a glass statue, which Tim Cook himself assembled on the Oval Office's Resolute desk. Mr. Cook proudly proclaimed the glass bit was US-made toughened glass that was used for Apple Watches. Of course the president cooed, and the more cynical ones of us suggested this was probably the only truly US component Apple can currently claim they use. Whether this one stays on Donald's desk or is already on its way to landfill remains to be seen.
I guess Tim Cook is trying to save his job, but it turns out AI is making it much harder to get a job. What went on this week with Workday?
Workday create loads of tools used in offices and businesses around the world, and as you'd expect, they've totally piled into the world of artificial intelligence. But according to some court activity in the US, the company now needs to disclose which businesses are using an AI tool called HiredScore for recruitment, as an investigation is looking into whether this tool was automatically discriminating against job hunters aged over 40 years old. As you might expect, the company have made great play of saying to a previous judge it would be really hard for them to reveal who was using the tool, but they've now been told they've got to do it. They've got to spill a complete list of names of companies that are using this tool.
It sounds quite plausible, doesn't it? Is there any way to beat the bots?
It would be entirely possible that this is happening, but the biggest question is going to be proving whether it was intentionally built that way to discriminate or whether this has happened inadvertently. In Europe, there's already laws in place to protect the workforce from AI discrimination like this, but there's nothing like that yet here in the UK. I've heard of at least a handful of cases like this where people who believe their CVs would be of interest to an employer politely approached the recruiter to say they'd been screened out but wanted to check that was the right decision. And at least 3 of those people ended up with the job. It might be getting harder, but try and get to an actual human being. Many recruiters are introducing these AI tools to handle the sheer number of increased submissions which come from every Tom, Dick and Harry, also helped by AI. So this is a bit like AI battling AI and AI deciding who should get jobs. It's all gone a bit weird, hasn't it?
And finally, tell us about poor old Christian Chapman and the insane work from home scheme she found herself involved in.
This one comes fresh from the wild, wild world of North Korea, and buckle up because it's pretty crazy. Imagine you're sat at your desk at the dawn of COVID. You get a LinkedIn message asking you to lead a new global initiative to get work from home roles for aspiring workers around the world. That sounds great, right? And Christine was struggling to find work and was caring for a sick relative. So this new job offer was welcome news. Well, it turns out she was inadvertently representing hundreds of North Koreans in a scam and a conspiracy created by the North Korean state. By finding them gigs, they were earning money that was going back to North Korea, and it was enabling North Korea to get closer to some rather sensitive corporate computer networks. Christine had inadvertently become a third-party mule. Now, she did make $17 million for her scam and for the North Korean government, and that was because she was hosting computers, she was helping North Koreans pose as US citizens by helping validate their stolen identities. She sent some of these laptops overseas so they could be logged into, so it meant that workers could remote connectly, and she received paychecks and transferred money to North Korea. Now, Christine has been sentenced to 8 years in prison for her role in this, and she wrote a letter to the FBI thanking them for arresting her as, a quote, "I was trying to get away from the guys that I was working for a while, and I wasn't really sure how to do it. Bonkers."
Still to come on the Sunday 7, in association with Metro, the world struggles to get a grip on its plastic problem, and a new study sheds light on ME. This week saw a major UN conference take place in Geneva as the world attempts to deal with the escalating problem caused by plastic pollution. Scientists estimate that there are 200 trillion pieces of plastic floating in the world's oceans, and the UN has been trying to get a treaty signed to limit plastic use and curb the amount of hazardous chemicals in plastics for over 2 years. Tamara Galloway is a professor in Eco-Toxicology at Exeter University, and she says plastic pollution is a global problem because once something is in the ocean, it can turn up pretty much anywhere. The university has a lab in the Galapagos Islands, and she says it's not uncommon to find plastic bottles in the stomach of seals thousands of miles from where it was thrown away.
That knowledge that we can find a plastic bottle in the stomach of a seal on the Galapagos Islands, nobody wants to be the company that is their plastic bottle. That's not the kind of advertising that they particularly want. So that kind of study and that kind of research can help us to persuade people to do things differently.
The conference in Switzerland expected to run until the 14th of August, but it's hard to know if there'll actually be a treaty signed at the end of it. Christina Dixon is from the Environmental Investigation Agency, and she says it's critical that the conference considers the entire life cycle of plastics and not just the current issue of waste and pollution.
There is a small group of countries that are absolutely opposed to the idea of dealing with plastic production. They really want to focus the treaty just on waste management. It's like leaving the tap running and trying to mop up the floor. It just doesn't work.
While there are growing concerns over the level of microplastics in food and in our bodies, the biggest impact from plastic waste is on wildlife and the oceans. In 2022, the world produced an estimated 475 million tonnes of plastic, and about 60% of that is classed as single-use, while only 10% is actually recycled. A Sky News investigation this week watched an autopsy of a porpoise at the London Zoological Society to demonstrate the impact that plastic waste can have. Rob Deauville is a Cetacean Stranding investigator. Essentially, his job is to figure out what killed sea life that washes up on the UK shores.
Each animal is different. Each animal can reveal something completely unique. And I think that's the interest and excitement behind it. The end point of this is we're trying to learn more about the threats they face.
Even with all of the evidence available, there's a real concern that the Geneva conference will not see a treaty signed, particularly with the United States' new approach to climate change under President Trump. But Professor Heather Koldeway is a marine biologist, and she says it's essential.
An ambitious treaty has to start at the production end of plastic. Plastic, when it gets in the ocean, when you're looking down the line, is almost impossible to deal with. If you're thinking about something like a microplastic or a nanoplastic, the same size as smaller than a plankton, how can you possibly clean that up out of the ocean?
ME has been classified as a neurological disease by the World Health Organization since 1969. It's also sometimes known as chronic fatigue syndrome, and symptoms can include profound fatigue, sleep issues, and difficulties with memory and concentration. Sufferers can also experience crashes after activity, which can last for days or even months, and about a quarter of those affected can be unable to leave their bed or their home. It's an area, however, that's had little research, but a new study from the University of Edinburgh's Institute of Genetics and Cancer has found that the disease is linked to your genes. The study, called Decode ME, found 8 different areas of genetic code in people who suffer from ME that are different to those without the condition. The study looked at the DNA of over 15,000 people across the UK and took 5 years to complete. The news will come as a relief to sufferers, many of whom have had to battle a public perception that the disease is not real. Liberal Democrat MP Tessa Munt has been campaigning on behalf of sufferers to get greater levels of government support, and she spoke to Channel 4 News about the study's findings.
What we have got is clear medical evidence that there is this group of 8 genes unique to people who are suffering with ME and possibly with those with ME-like symptoms. There clearly is a pattern in the genetic code, and it's down to the scientists and the researchers to actually pick this up and run with it. It's a brilliant story, what's happened. This has been the efforts of many, many people who've taken part in this research, and we've got honourable people who've done really decent work to make sure that this group of people is treated better in the future. They've had decades of being treated very poorly.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, in association with Metro, the UK's first spaceport gets ready for launch, and we meet some radioactive rhinos.
Right after this.
Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of the Smart 7 is brought to you by your Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. Imagine a world where your favourite things cost less. It's pretty amazing, right? It's like the universe is aligned just for you. Well, that's the magic of your Nectar prices at Sainsbury's, and it's pretty simple. You can unlock up to 10 personalised discounts every Friday on things you love in the Nectar app. And the best part is that while Nectar prices are for everyone, your Nectar prices are just for you. It couldn't be simpler. Each week you'll get up to 10 personalised offers. They're your Nectar prices. So every Friday, just check your Nectar app and unlock your Nectar prices to save more now. Enjoy your own personalised discounts on things you love with your Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. This offer's for 18 plus, Nectar app required. Unlock up to 10 your Nectar prices weekly, available in supermarkets, online and in locals with Smart Shop. T&Cs apply.
Welcome back.
Space travel and rocket launches are a hot topic these days, whether it's billionaires with exotically shaped vehicles or NASA's plan to put humans back on the moon. There's an ongoing fascination with space. The UK has had some notable astronauts, including Commander Tim Peake, but we're not well known for rocket launches, at least until now. There are a number of spaceports in development across the UK, in Cornwall, in Snowdonia in Wales and in Scotland. The most advanced is probably the Saxavord spaceport, which is located on the Shetland Strands. They've just been granted a 15-year licence by the Civil Aviation Authority for launches of its Skylark L rocket. They have permission for up to 16 launches a year, but they're only expecting to reach suborbital levels. That's about 100 miles up, but not fully into orbit with this generation of rocket. The first launch could take place next year, and head of space at the British Science Museum, Libby Jackson, says it's advancements in satellite technology that have driven the rush to have a functioning UK space industry.
20 years ago, satellites were the size of double-decker buses and so needed much bigger launch vehicles. As we have developed and improved technologies, satellites have shrunk. That means you can have a smaller rocket that is able to put something into space, and it has opened the door to countries like the UK being able to launch satellites into space. The UK sees this as a real commercial market opportunity, and it's why all this work is being done to develop these technologies.
This week has seen vaccines making headlines on both sides of the Atlantic, and with mixed results. US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has vowed to make America health again, and it's set to ban food colorants, and has even inspired President Trump to reinstate a so-called presidential fitness test for school kids. But whatever his intentions around physical health are, he's a long-time vaccine skeptic and famous for spreading conspiracy theories. He fired the FDA's vaccine panel and restaffed it with conspiracy theorists and fringe scientists, and he's now moved to halt all research into mRNA vaccines, which were seen as a life-changing innovation during COVID. The vaccines, which are built on viruses' genetic code, become a critical part of Donald Trump's Operation Lightspeed when developing a COVID vaccine. And Professor Adam Finn, a vaccine researcher at the University of Bristol, says dumping the technology altogether would be stupid and potentially catastrophic. One of the projects RFK Jr has binned is a potential vaccine for bird flu.
After reviewing the science and consulting top experts at NIH and FDA, HHS has determined that mRNA technology poses more risk than benefits for these respiratory viruses. That's why, after extensive review, BARDA has begun the process of terminating these 22 contracts totaling just under $500 million. To replace the troubled mRNA programs, we're prioritizing the development of safer, broader vaccine strategies.
In the UK, there was good news on vaccines, specifically around sexually transmitted infections, or STIs. The UK has been struggling with a wave of gonorrhea, with over 85,000 cases of the disease reported in 2023. There is a vaccine available, but up to now it's only been through private healthcare and not the NHS. However, as of Monday, the government rolled out a new vaccine, which was originally designed to prevent meningitis, but is now proven to be about 40% effective in preventing gonorrhea. The Terence Higgins Trust has been campaigning for a vaccine rollout for some time, and Chief Executive Richard Angell was urging those at risk to get the shot.
There's about 87,000 cases of gonorrhea the last year for which we have figures, so about 35,000 of those could be prevented if everyone got the vaccines, about 40% effective. But crucially, it's as effective against super gonorrhea, the strain that's resistant to antibiotics, as it is against normal gonorrhea. And that's a really, really powerful tool.
The rhino remains one of the species that is at serious risk of extinction, but not necessarily from environmental issues. Rather, it's from poaching. In the first 3 months of 2025, 103 rhinos were killed by poachers who were keen to remove the rhino's horn and sell it for use in traditional medicine in China, Vietnam, or other Asian countries. Conservationists have been attempting to protect rhinos from poachers by removing the horns, and it's been shown to reduce the level of poaching by up to 80%. But it doesn't solve the problem of poaching, and now a new approach might offer a way to both protect the rhinos and crack down on the smugglers. A South African university has developed a method of tagging rhinos' horns with radioactive particles, which will make it easy to detect and track the horns as poachers or smugglers attempt to ship them across the world. James Larkin is the director of the Radiation and Health Physics Unit at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg.
We developed the use of radioisotopes to devalue rhino horn. So you're using radioactive material, small quantities of it, inserted into the horn of a rhino, which is like then putting a massive bright light into the horn that no one can turn off. It stays there, and as it goes across borders, the detectors are in place that can pick it up, because those detectors have been installed for other reasons, but just as capable of picking up a rhino horn as they are smuggled nuclear material.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.